While everybody's settling in, I want to welcome everybody. This was our first meeting since 2019 in person. So lots of new faces. For those of you who don't have any clue who this guy is standing in front of you, my name's Dave Bader. I'm the council chair and lead PI for E3SM. It's been a real privilege being involved with this project. We're going to start off with some opening remarks from our sponsors. I think one of the things we're supposed to do early on is the safety briefing. So the exits are marked, the green letters behind you. Head outside if there's an emergency. Other than that, Angela's out there. Any other needs you may have? If you didn't meet her when you picked up your badge, that's Angela Jefferson. She is the program office administrator for climate program at Livermore. Dr. Geernaert, he is the director of the biological environmental research at DOE Office of Science. Gary?
Anyway, thanks, Dave, and thanks, Xujing. Thanks, everybody, for this meeting. I think it's exciting that it's we're finally having an in-person meeting after several years. So I hope we're on a trend to do that in the future. So just to start off, E3SM, I think it was, as we all know, was a pretty exciting project. And I would say it's one of the most exciting projects in Office of Science. It was one of the mechanisms which really put DOE's center place on the map in climate modeling research. It's not to say we weren't doing it before, but at least now having its own modeling capability, DOE is really part of the international team, and I thank all of you for that. This would not have been possible without people in this room getting together, coming up with a vision and strategy of what was possible, and pushing the envelope, beyond what any other modeling center in the world was even dreaming of doing. Just in short, E3SM is I would say it's an integrative model which combines, all aspects of the natural system, but it connects with the human components in a very robust way. I think what also makes it very unique is that the intent was to port it to the fastest computers in the world as they become online. Unfortunately, those are at DOE, so it makes it quite nice. And we're now on an exascale computer running some simulations. The other feature is that we advertised E3SM as moving towards an ultra high resolution capability. And that's not to say that we don't need, let's say, 50-kilometer resolution simulations or 100-kilometer. We need a range of different types of capabilities. But at least introducing the really high resolution component was important for DOE. It really pushes the envelope. It was driven by a couple of factors. I would say if we go back to around 2013 or 2014, some of those were some of the early work at LANL on ice sheet modeling, where we noticed that resolution really does matter when you're looking at breakup of ice sheets. Hydrology was another issue when I think it was PNNL was looking at the surface water, groundwater exchanges and how droughts could affect some of the hydrological systems. And I would say more recently, we got into coastal, which is a very heterogeneous environment. During the past year and a half, we got into urban, which is even worse for an ultra high resolution heterogeneous environment. And finally, we're getting into energy modeling. And in fact, right now I'm at the Energy Modeling Forum up in Snowmass, about to kick that workshop off. And it's mainly because some of the big topics in energy modeling have to do with the risks of blackouts and what the domino effect of blackouts might be on the economy or on the natural environment, but it goes beyond that. I think what's more important is what do we hope E3SM to be in, say, 5 or 10 years? And I thought I'd just give you a clue of some of the priorities that DOE is placing on a lot of its investments. Of course, machine learning and AI is one big one. So we have adopted that within the framework for E3SM. It doesn't mean we just blindly do it, but we do it in smart ways. In the future, we're going to be getting into quantum computing in some clever ways. I think it's too early to say how E3SM can benefit from that, but I would say where there's early thinking, that might be good, but that might be several cycles out where we can even dream of what's possible. Uncertainty quantification is not new, but that's going to be a growing field. And finally, we have the Climate Modeling Summit, which is the group of 6 modeling centers across the US that get together each year to identify what are the hot topics where the modeling centers can collaborate. These are the ones in NASA, NOAA, DOE, and NSF. And I might say that a few months ago, we had a workshop on air-sea interactions, which became a unifying theme, at least for the next year. Data assimilation is a second one that they're hoping will be a collaborative effort during that same time or just afterwards. And finally, the whole idea of the time horizon for climate modeling and simulations is changing. 3 or 4 years ago, we talked about the time horizon being, sub-decadal to centennial, but now it's getting to below S2S, subseasonal to seasonal, out to centennial. So now we're looking at shorter term challenges that are very difficult to take on. So I think at that point, I'm just going to stop. I don't know if there are any questions, but I just wanted to applaud all of you for what you've achieved. I think E3SM is a front runner internationally in climate modeling in general. I'm really proud of what you guys have achieved. I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to what comes out of this PI meeting. So thanks so much. I think I'm going to pass the baton back to, I think, Xujing, is that right? Or Dave?
Okay, thank you, Gary. Okay, you're up. So Sally is our ARM facility manager, and I think she's acting division director for biological, because I got it.
Yeah, I will. All right, thanks, Dave. Yes, I'm Sally McFarlane. I'm the acting division director for the Earth and Environmental Systems Sciences Division. And I'm also the ARM facility program manager. And I was temporarily, before Xujing came on board, the interim program manager for E3SM. So I'm excited to be able to say a couple words at this meeting. As Gary mentioned, of course, E3SM is an important flagship activity for BER. So it's exciting to see you all being able to get together to have this meeting and discuss your plans for the next phase of E3SM. We really, across the division, see E3SM as a way to help integrate all the scientific knowledge that's being developed across BER to help improve predictability of the Earth system. So it's just exciting to see all the work you're doing to get this knowledge into the models and into using the exascale computer. I know you're going to be discussing a lot of the plans for the phase 3 phase of the project, including your science simulation campaigns. And I think there's some exciting activities there with the large ensembles, better integrating the human systems, and of course, all the new development you have planned for V4 and the new capabilities. So I don't want to take much time because I know we're already probably a little bit behind, but just want to also applaud the way E3SM works together across the laboratories. I know that's often a hard and complex thing to do, but I think this project makes it work really well, that you all work together to improve the model. So with that, I will close there and hope you enjoy the meeting.
Thank you, Sally. And I want to reemphasize, Sally was a very important bridge for when Dorothy left and Xujing arrived. Both transitions were seamless. So I want to thank you again for that time you spent with us. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Xujing Davis in person. Many of you have listened to her voice and seen her picture online, but now in 3 dimensions, here she is.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Gary and Sally. I think the team really appreciate your inspiration remarks. That meant a lot to the team. Is it? So, good morning, everyone. Is working okay, the mic? Okay. So I'm very excited to be here today and to meet many of you in person for the first time after 3+ years of working together every day. So since Gary and Sally are here, we switch my talk with the award ceremony. So that's right, Renata? Okay. Every year, E3SM recognizes team members who make exceptional contributions to the critical but less visible aspects of E3SM model development. Everyone who uses E3SM model relies on and benefits from these contributions. However, these contributions usually do not lead to publications or traditional laboratory recognitions. So, usually in each all-hands meeting, E3SM Executive Committee selects 2 awards from the council nominations. However, because we were not able to have meetings for past 4 years, this year we have 7 citations. There, 2 awards. So this year's awardees are Leung, Alison Barso, Cass Smith, Luca Patania, Andrew Roberts, Chris Terroy, and Leung Wu. So next, I will announce the citation for each award. Let me see your name. Please come up to receive your certificate. Renata, will we have pictures or not? What's that? So the first we have Leung, Alison Barso, and Kat Smith. Please come to stage. They were willing to drop everything and devote a huge amount of effort to understanding the AMOC bias. This involved numerous meetings per week for strategy sessions and prioritizing the understanding of AMOC bias above everything else. The work led to very substantial improvements in sea surface temperature, salinity, and AMOC representations. All 3 worked incredibly hard and became more competent and agile scientists. They have become important contributors to E3SM project for now and into the future. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next, we have Luca Botania. Please come to stage. Luca is a quiet hide in the background kind of person, but he wrote a large fraction of the Emacs code, and his intellectual thumbprint can be found in most of our design decisions. He is a joy to work with. He is always happy to help out however he can. He's remarkably patient and supportive in explaining things to those of us who are less computational inclined. I'm one of them. And he's also an excellent writer, as evidenced by the fact that he was the lead author on both home math publications. Next, we have Andrew Roberts. Andrew, please come here. Andrew is recognized for his careful, detailed, and essential examination of CS model and CS ocean coupling during phase 2. His efforts led to the discovery of numerous bugs and inconsistencies, allowed us to remove an artificial sea surface high filter, and ultimately resulted in a significantly improved CS climate for version 2, along with much greater confidence in the fidelity of the CS model and its coupling. Andrew's work has led to creative new metrics and improvements to diagnostics and workflow that provide quite quick yet fundamental insights into model behavior. Finally, we'd like to recognize Andrew's careful and caring efforts in mentoring early career staff on the project. Next, we have Chris Terroy. Chris, please come to stage. Chris showed outstanding leadership in E3SM V3 atmosphere model integration and tuning and convection assessment. This effort led to considerable improvements in E3SM simulation of mean climate and variability, and the improved simulation of the observed surface temperature anomaly that can be the biggest issue with E3SM. He led the team that met on a regular weekly basis for approximately 18 months to test, evaluate, and address numerous code problems, implementation issues, and model deficiencies found during the model integration and evaluation stage, and ensure the timely delivery of the EESSD V3 atmosphere to the target group. We have Mingxuan Wu. Mingxuan, can you come to stage, please? Mingxuan has gone above and beyond his efforts in developing the nitrate aerosol capability and working with others to integrate, reconcile changes related to aerosol modeling. During the pandemic, he devoted significant efforts to configure, run EESSD simulations for our COVID MAP simulations. His contributions cross both the atmosphere group and the BGC group. Thank you very much, Mingxuan. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much again. So I guess that's me. Okay, so again, yeah, I'm CJ Davis, Program Manager of the DOE Earth System Model Development Program Area, ESMD, supporting EESSD development. Before I start, I also would like to say that today I'm also joined from DOE, my colleague Renata Joseph, I don't know where she is. Okay, so many of you know her. She's the program manager of the regional and global model analysis or RG program area, supporting research projects with E3SM as a necessary component. For next 15 minutes also, still trying to work back. I would like to provide you a brief overview of how DOE, particularly ESMD program or ESM, within the Earth and Environmental System Sciences Division or ESSD, I know a lot of names to remember, within the DOE Office of Science, the Biological and Environmental Research Program Office or BER. Within the division, all the program activities are guided by and support the division strategic plan, tackling 5 grand challenges: the integrated water cycle, biogeochemistry, highlight processes, drivers and responses, and the model data observation integration. Parallel to BER, there is another office called the Advanced Scientific Computing Research or OSCAR Program Office, which is very important but distinct, that we work closely with, mainly through the scientific discovery through advanced computing or SciDAC partnership. E3SM, as Dave always says, is a DOE model on DOE machine for DOE mission. The development strategies are to drive model development with science questions centered around the water cycle, biogeochemistry, and cryosphere processes. And we aim to develop an integrated Earth system model, including all Earth system components and the human component across different temporal and spatial scales by pushing high resolution frontier, by bridging gaps in scales and processes, and by quantifying uncertainties through large ensemble simulations. At the DOE, EESSD also leverages the department's HPC capability to prepare for the transition to the next era computing, for example, the GPU era. EESSD also integrates innovative mathematical computational methods, tools, and algorithms, such as machine learning methods Gary mentioned earlier. Within ESMD, EESSD has more than 60% of the total budget and has a budget about 30 million per year. It's a central driver for the EESSD development. Other projects contribute to EESSD development in different ways and more flexibly. For example, the SciDAC project supports the deep, necessary collaboration and integration between the earth science scientists from BER side and the computational mathematical scientists from OSCAR side to accelerate EESSD development. Other lab-led projects either address a particular challenge of the Earth system modeling science community, for example, the EAGLE project, or to address current DOE priorities while enhancing EESSD capability in relevant areas, for example, the coastal projects. We also support the career development of distinguished early career scientists through open call the early career research program for both DOE lab and university. We also try to retrieve fresh talent from the academia by open calls university FOA yearly call. The ESMD ecosystem has been evolving. In FY22, we had 8 new awards from the SANDAC FOA and the University of FOA, targeting major challenges of the E3SM. The topics include, for example, low-level clause, AMOC, QBO, and others. And right now, we are in the process of recommending a series of new awards. Some of them will be from the Early Career Research Program under Office of Science. For the EESM program, the theme is coastal urban. It's a joint effort between ESMD and RGMA. And also there'll be some awards from the FY22 University Awards. In addition, all the coastal projects supported jointly by EESM program areas are entering their phase 2 review. For example, ICOM interface and Compass GLM. In addition to the ESMD ecosystem, E3SM also a larger part of the larger EESSD or DOE ecosystem. E3SM provides modeling capabilities for other program support activities to address EESSD relevant science questions. Meanwhile, E3SM integrates the knowledge gained from these projects to inform future development. There has been continued discussion between the ARM facility and the E3SM during the past 2 years as the key people to further enhance the observation data integration. During the past 2 years, E3SM has made many exciting advancements and landmark achievements. I do not want to go into detail here. I just want to highlight and congratulate the team for a successful phase 3 review. Particularly, I want to congratulate you all for realizing our ESSA skill vision. By successfully developing the first benchmark of SCREAM 3 kilometers SCREAM global simulations on the first and fastest ESSA machine in the world frontier, and also providing a valuable reference for the whole climate modeling science community across the globe. Congratulations to the Dave and to the full team. During phase 3, E3SM realigned itself to have a new management structure to refocus its priorities to address its long-term goal of actionable prediction. By doing this, we welcome many new members into the leadership team. E3SM members have been very actively involved in the science community activities, some of them in leadership roles and some for community service, both nationally and internationally. E3SM's significant contribution have been recognized across the science community, the SCREAM, the multi-scale modeling framework, and the science consortium. Congratulations. And some individuals also received well-deserved recognition for their exceptional contribution. Ruby, Xubin, and Steven, congratulations. E3SM lost 2 key members during the past 2 years, Kate Kelvin and Paul Borley. Both of them have been with the project since the very beginning and are instrumental in the project's success and involvement. Kate, particularly for the leadership in the GChem coupling, and Pat for his extensive knowledge in hardware, software, model physics, and code base. They are very much valued and missed. While celebrating our success and achievements, we have many challenges and also opportunities right now into the near future and the long term. We need to address the model bias for E3SM's credibility and fidelity. We have much room to improve for integrating effectively the DOE, particularly EESSD investments. And there are many emerging technologies, concepts, and initiatives, both in US and internationally. How E3SM will navigate ourselves through all this and to maintain our leadership role in some perspectives, and also can we find a new unique space for E3SM to succeed and even take the lead. So basically, what's in your mind E3SM be like in 2033, in 10 years? I want you all to have this question in your mind throughout the meeting, and especially during the breakout discussions. So I will leave it like that. I want to thank you all very much. Thanks to Dave, to the E3SM leadership team, to all the project team members, and to the ecosystem project team members. Thank you all for share your talent with DOE E3SM, for your enormous efforts, dedication, and contribution for where E3SM is today. And it has been very challenging 3 years, the big environment, but has been very exciting and inspiring for me. It has been truly an honor and pleasure to work with you all. Thank you very much. I leave some other slides on her come talk with for you to refer to later. Okay.
Do we have questions? My presentation is going to be short, long meeting. Last thing you need is a long introduction to a long meeting. But first of all, anybody who spends 20% of their time or more writing code, raise your hands. I want to tell you that we all appreciate what you do. It's thankless, not very rewarding. Some of the code you write doesn't lead to publications, but without that, we wouldn't be a project. And so I appreciate everybody who spends time actually writing code for this model, because without it, there would be no model, and you don't necessarily get the glory of it, but it is extremely important. I was talking to one of the group leaders, and they made a point of, my team works really hard. And I think anybody that writes code works really hard. I haven't done it in a very long time, not for real anyway. But I remember how hard and at times frustrating it could be. So I just want to, we love to talk about the science, we love to talk about all these achievements, but it all comes down to people writing code. I don't think ChatGPT can write a climate model yet. Maybe in the future, but maybe write a few loops for you. I don't know. But I do want to make sure that we recognize the people who spend their times at keyboards in fonts that I can't even see. They look like micrographics because my eyes are old, with 4 screens going at one time writing code. So I just want to acknowledge all you folks who do that. So this is kind of what we're talking about, what E3SM is. We did not, for those of you who are new to the project, and for those who aren't new, but it deserves repeating. We're a DOE model for DOE mission on DOE computers. That doesn't mean for just Office of Science mission. When we put this project together, it was for all DOE, and we're starting to see that now with DOE being used for Earthshots. I know there are at least a half a dozen LDRD projects at many labs that use this model as the core of what they are. So it's gratifying to me and to the rest of the leadership to see this model actually achieving a DOE mission beyond our work for BER. So this is great. We didn't put together another model just to do CMIP, right? There are lots of models that can do CMIP, and you always hear me grumbling about it a lot, of the CMIP tax, or the coordinated model tax, or taxes of various kinds. What makes us different is the innovation we bring to doing things that are different. We do those other community projects to demonstrate quality and capability, but that's not our goal. So, we've had a phased approach I don't need to go through this figure in detail, but going from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, we've always had in mind what architectures we're going to be working with. This is a driver, starting with CPU-based systems, going to the 100 petaflop systems, the exascale. And then our science is driven by our simulation campaign. So we try to put all this together into a strategic framework, and that's what is seen in our proposals at each stage along the way. Not that we always achieve that, but that is our goal. So just some highlights from, most importantly is the first one. We have a strong culture of project before lab. This is what makes us unique. We have 8 laboratories and half a dozen universities working with us. And I tell people we have 8 labs working together for 10 years, and they just don't believe any project could do that. I think we are unique in that way. So that's a tribute to all of you who are able to, at times, push back on your management, to do things that may be not putting project before lab. Completed the V1 simulation campaign. We have over 12,000 years of V2 simulation. The RR2 regional refined model. RR modeling is a hallmark of this project, and our goal is, although other groups do it, is to make it as routine as possible for other users to do that. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but a big part of this is making it easy to do RRM simulations, so not just a few people can do them. We doubled, thanks to our algorithmic groups, throughput with the atmospheric model, and we demonstrated in a real application with Scream the template C++ programming model. We've established a more rigorous code review process. I think this comes out of both our experience, bad, in integrating the V2 model, plus taking a hint from other applications areas in DOE that you really have to strengthen up your code review process in order to keep a large, complex modeling system on track. And we've installed and maintained this model on several DOE systems for the use by projects other than E3SM. So the phase 3 concept, and believe it or not, and I'll come back in a little while and show you another version of this figure, is already out of date, even though we just reviewed last fall. But the whole idea is we're going to do parallel V3 and V4 development, just like we have in earlier phases. V4 model is going to be a full C++ model. Main difference here is we start off with V2 for both versions, but we're going to take out the atmosphere and bring in a version of Spring, which we're calling KMXX. And by the way, Peter, I never liked the Scream acronym, as you know. And I said, this is going to stick. But it is what it is. And XX, in our jargon, the XX stands for ++ turn 45 degrees. So that's anytime you see an XX, it means C++. But we're going to go through V4 development into using that atmosphere as a complete replacement. Remember, this was a clean sheet model, so no legacy code. But then what comes next after this, right? So hybrid architectures were a disruptive technology. We're going to have more disruptive technologies. Edge computing, machine learning, next generation artificial intelligence, data model fusion, lots of talk about that, except for a few specialized applications. Not really sure what that means, but we're going to do it. And we're going to continue to integrate these. We are, half our mission, this is a DOE mission on DOE computers, is to use DOE technology in our work. So that's a big differentiator. And, you know, we've recently come up with this idea that it'll be the modeling foundation for a digital twin of the Earth system. So lots to talk about digital twins, lots of big meetings on digital twins. I think this will come about more incrementally than transformative, but I think the end product will be a transformation. And, you know, the connection with GCAM and between Earth system model and an integrated assessment model. I don't know, what do you guys call those now? Where's Ben? What do we call integrated assessment models now? Okay, thank you. Could you speak that louder?
Multi-sector dynamics.
Okay. Anyway, so I think that's going to be a big factor that'll differentiate us from others. So, and we designed this org chart deliberately this way instead of being hierarchical. Really wanted to show requirements coming from the science back to the development work, then the capabilities moving from the development back up through the science. So I think this is an important way to view this. Somehow, and this is my fault, I think it's been a version. Mega XX should actually be here under XX again. Ocean model and the atmosphere, that's where we're going with this now. So I think that could be my last slide. It is. So let's have a great meeting. Time for a few questions before I turn it over to Ruby and Mark and Renata. Okay. Who's up next, Ruby or Mark? Who's got the agenda? Ruby is.
I'm really glad to see all of you. And I think the last meeting we had was 3.5 years ago. I think it was in the fall of 2019. And since then, we haven't had an in-person all hands meeting. So I'm really glad to see all of you. So just to remind ourselves again, an important goal of the project is really to provide Earth system modeling capabilities for actionable science. So just want to remind all of us, what do we mean by actionable science, right? So we have essentially 3 different goals to achieve that. The first is to do high resolution modeling, particularly because we wanted to look at extreme events, which have important impacts on the energy sector, but of course also on many other sectors like the water sectors, agriculture sectors, etc. So we wanted to look at extreme events in a changing climate by using high resolution modeling. And we also wanted to be able to represent not only the natural Earth system, but also managed and man-made systems, and as well as the interactions, so that we can use this modeling capability to help project the future outcomes. And then lastly, we wanted to be able to do ensemble modeling so that we can quantify uncertainty. And a very special way of doing that in this project is really to bring together Earth system scientists together with computational scientists. And I think we have been really successful in doing that. So now just spending a little bit time just to remind ourselves that what have we accomplished according to these 3 different goals in phases 1 and 2, and then what are we going to do in phase 3. So here I have a table, and of course you all know about these already. So we have many different model configurations, right? In phases 1 and 2, we have started out with low resolution model configuration with roughly 100 kilometer resolution for the atmosphere. And then in version 1, we also have a high resolution configuration. And then starting with version 2, we have an updated version 2 for our low resolution model. And at the same time, we came up with this regional refined modeling capability. And I think it's really unique for us to be able to come up with a set of simulations that are actually fully coupled in terms of regional refinement, because most of other studies that use regional refined capabilities are mostly only running the atmosphere model only. And we are actually one of the probably maybe essentially the only group that actually has produced fully coupled simulations on regional refined mesh. So we have the North America regional refined mesh, as well as the Southern Ocean regional refined mesh. And then, of course, in phase 2, we also produced the SCREAM model, which allow us to do cloud resolving modeling. And this capability can also now be used with a regional refined configuration as well. So these are really something important for us to be able to do. And so these are just showing the SCREAM model capability that Peter has been leading this effort. And in parallel, we also have another capability by an ecosystem project, the Exascale Computing Project, ECP project led by Mark Taylor. And we produce this capability with the MMF version of E3SM that also allow us to do cloud resolving modeling as well. So these are the achievements that we have made in phases 1 and 2 in terms of resolution, pushing that frontier. And then in terms of modeling human activities or the human systems, in phase 2, a lot of efforts have been invested in coupling the GCAM, the global change analysis model together with the E3SM, so that we are able to incorporate human systems and socioeconomic system in our model. A unique way of doing this compared to previous effort is really to couple these two models together through the flux coupler. So that gives us a much more dynamic way of having the two models interact, starting with exchanging just a few variables, but this will give us the baseline capability in the future where more interactions and more other variables could be exchanged in terms of not only the carbon cycle, but potentially the water cycle and other factors. And in phase 2, we also developed the capability to model water supply and reservoir operations, and that's in our E3SM model, as well as modeling bioenergy crop, which is also in the E3SM model. And in terms of quantifying uncertainty, in phases 1 and 2, we actually have already done a lot in terms of understanding uncertainties in our models, right? So one particular aspect is how resolution can affect our model solution. And so the uncertainty related to that. So on the left-hand side, you see some studies that we have performed by looking at how changing resolution may be changing how the model is able to represent water cycle processes, as well as how the model is able to represent the Southern Ocean in terms of the interactions between the ocean and the ice shelf. And then in the middle, we have also looked at structural uncertainty, particularly looking at how two different ways of representing biogeochemistry in terms of the nitrogen limitation can affect the solution and the carbon feedback. And then lastly, on the right-hand side, in phase 2, we also started looking at model parametric uncertainty, particularly developing the capability to do auto-tuning so that we can better calibrate model parameters to allow us to look at uncertainty. And so now going into phase 3, we are now bringing all of these capabilities that we have developed during the last 2 phases together, and we are going to perform simulation campaigns. So later on, you are going to hear from our group leads about all these different campaigns that we are going to perform. But just a quick overview for the water cycle, we are going to look at water cycle changes and impacts. Particularly, we will be performing large ensemble simulations to quantify uncertainty related to parameters that might change the climate sensitivity, as well as perturbing initial conditions so that we can also quantify uncertainty related to internal variability. And then for the biogeochemistry group, which we now call the Human Earth System Feedbacks Group, they will be developing decarbonization scenarios using this coupled GCAM E3SM capability so that it allows us to look at how different decarbonization scenarios might change the way that climate is going to be projected into the future and the impacts. And then the cryosphere group, now we call the polar processor, sea level rise, and coastal impacts group, will continue to look at structural uncertainty and model biases related to processes that would ultimately affect sea level rise. And then during phase 3, not only that we would be taking our capabilities to perform simulation campaigns, we will also be building out new capabilities for our version 4. So I listed a number of activities here. For example, the GPU-enabled atmosphere model, which is the EMXX, will continue to be developed as well as be exercised to perform simulations to help us understand, for example, cloud feedbacks. And then we would be developing a new ocean model, the Omega XX model, which would be an eddy resolving model right from the start using C++. And then there would also be new modeling capabilities allowing us to model sea level, surface mass balance, ice sheet, ocean coupling, and other cryosphere processes, as well as modeling land river human systems and software, as well as infrastructure. So with that, I just want to also quickly give you the timeline, and I think we are all pretty proud of ourselves that starting actually back in 2013 with 2 different workshops that really motivated E3SM. Right? One of the workshops says that, one of the DOE report says that climate change will have significant impacts on the energy sector. And so we need to develop capabilities that allow us to look at how climate change and the energy sector interact. And then the second report was about exascale computing, saying that this exascale computer will be disruptive. And so we need to be able to think about how our Earth system models will be able to take advantage of exascale computers. So the E3SM project essentially started in October 2014. And it's almost exactly 10 years. And earlier this year, we finally really have our first benchmark of our GPU-enabled atmosphere model running on GPU machine, the Frontier machine. So it does really tell us that if we plan and develop the roadmap for what we wanted to do, we would be able to accomplish what we want. And I think we should all be patting ourselves on the shoulder for being able to do that. So lastly, I just want to mention that 2 years ago in the all hands meeting, I presented a kind of like some thoughts about our path forwards. And since now we have so many different model versions, right, or configurations, we can configure low resolution model, high resolution model. We have RM capability. We also have convection permitting modeling through the screen model as well as MMF. How do all these work together and in terms of a hierarchy, and how do we build out these capabilities into the future? I'm not going to go into the detail of that because of time, but I would love to be able to hear more of your thoughts and continue to iterate with you about this vision, especially for the fact that now we do have the exascale computer and we are able to run our convection permitting model. And it is likely that the high resolution model, like the 25 kilometer resolution model, would also be very performant in this kind of machine. So we really need to think about how do we bring all of these together. So with that, thank you very much for your attention.
So I'm going to talk about our exascale strategy. It's been mentioned several times now. It's been since the founding of the project. Our goal is to make sure DOE has a Earth system model that runs well on the DOE exascale computers. Since about 2019, I've been showing some variation of this slide saying our exascale strategy has really been simplified into a GPU strategy. That's when the kind of exascale roadmap settled down, and then all the major exascale machines, at least in the US, are GPU based. This is a roadmap from our proposal showing going all the way back to phase 1 from E3SM, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then the major machines at NERSC, OLCF, and ALCF. And during phase 3, that's when we're in the exascale era, and we're also in the GPU era, where we really only have, or mostly only have GPU cycles. Those are these machines: Frontier, Aurora, and Perlmutter. On my next slide, I have a breakdown of this in terms of actual CPU node hours available to the project and within all of DOE. And we have our CPU systems, E3SM's dedicated resources that the project purchased, Anvil, Comp, and Chrysalis. In terms of CPU node hours, that's about 8.8 million per year, if we keep those machines busy round the clock. And then Perlmutter has a CPU partition. Our allocation is quite small, 0.3 million node hours per year, but it does provide to all of DOE, not just climate, about 26 million node hours per year. I list these numbers, though, to put that in perspective, the amount of GPU node hours available even this year and then in coming years. And in terms of all of DOE, that's close to a billion node hours, especially when Aurora comes on in 2024. So maybe like 600 million node hours, GPU hours accessible to E3SM if we can make effective use of those machines. In 2023, our allocation, about 9 million of CPU and about 4 or 5 million, so half that in GPU node hours. So we've been working on running on GPUs for a long time. It's been a lot harder than I think many of us thought. It's taken a long time. This is my very high level slide of why that process is so difficult and requires such large changes to a code. So what I like to point out is that GPU nodes are quite expensive. They typically have a CPU node and then add 4 to 6 more GPUs on top of that. So they cost about 4 times as much, if not more. It's hard to get actual pricing data. And the power consumption, also hard to get, but a GPU node does use at least 3 times, maybe more of the power. So if you're going to use a GPU node, your code really has to run at least 3 times faster, and hopefully much more than that just to justify getting those cycles and using that hardware. And if you need that kind of speed up, you have to have your entire application basically, or at least 90% of it running on the GPU. You have take the atmosphere, for example, you get the die core running on the GPU, it's half the cost of the atmosphere. Can't give you more than a factor of 2 speed up, so it's still not enough. You need the whole atmosphere, you need the whole ocean, the whole component running end to end on the GPU. Our best results so far to date are the Scream V1, where it's on the fastest GPU nodes on Frontier. It's running about 5 times faster than our fastest CPU nodes, which are Perlmutter's CPU partition. So in terms of GPU readiness, during phase 3, all our major simulation campaigns, water cycle, HES, and Polar, still involve a lot of components, and we'll be running on our 9 million CPU node hour allocations, mostly Chrysalis and Compi. But we will have 3 GPU capabilities running on these GPU systems in phase 3. Scream V1, the cloud resolving model that we've heard about, the MMF super parameterization. This one actually is the exception to the rule I just said, where the whole code has to run on the GPU. The MMF, which brings in super parameterization, that cloud resolving parameterization is about 90% of the cost of the model. So you only need that component running on the GPU, and then you can use them effectively. So the MMF will be evaluated during phase 3, and it's the one path to running long coupled climate simulations during phase 3 on GPU systems. So if it looks good, that will be a way to use all those GPU hours for climate. And then the high-res land simulations are running on the GPU. But it won't be till phase 4 that we have a full Earth system model running efficiently on GPU systems and CPU systems. And so my last slide is just a path to a GPU-ready version 4. During phase 3, the bulk of our work will be focused on the atmosphere, EMXX, C++ port of the atmosphere to support GPUs, and Omega XX. the ocean component. The other components are equally important, but we focus most of our effort on these two because of when you put together the coupled system, at least in the machines we foresee in the future, we can leave the remaining components on the CPU because they're much less expensive when you're running fully coupled. But we do have smaller efforts porting the remaining components to GPUs as well, especially in the land and land ice.
Any questions for Mark? Oh, good idea. He's in charge of the microphone, that's why.
Thanks, Mark. This is Susanna Burrows from PNNL. I just wanted to ask if you can clarify something, because I know this has come up a few times, that is it possible to have most of a component model running on the GPUs, but some parts of the code maybe still in Fortran or haven't been ported yet running on the GPU? That's not that easy. So both on the GPUs and some on the GPUs.
It's certainly possible to do that. Usually if you do that, you get relatively small performance increase. You know, your model might be 20% faster. So it really, you can't get an allocation doing that because the GPU nodes cost so much more. So you really need to be competitive, factors of 4 or so, which means you can leave, if you work that out, 10% at most maybe on the CPU.
Any other questions? Up is Renata. Talk about project policies and the important stuff that keeps us trains running on time.
Hello, everyone. I'm Renata McCoy. Closer. Okay. Okay. I'll be talking about policies, support, and communication. I'm project engineer and chief operating officer. So we have policies on code and data support, and I think everyone knows that our code is open development, and we decided on that with the first release of our model, with version V1 in April 2018. From this point on, our code is developmental version of the code is also freely available on the GitHub. And with that, we also have an expectation on everyone in E3SM that any software that is being developed in the project should be an open source. I wanted to point everyone to the talk by Rob Jacob on development best practices. It will be on Tuesday at 2:30, so it should be a good reminder of what best practices we have. The data from all major campaigns is being published and available to everyone on the Air System Grid Federation Archives, ESGF. We have few months delay with publishing all those data because we want to publish first overview paper from it. We have a limited support for the code. Only the scientifically validated composites and configurations are being supported. And those versions are version 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 2.0, and 2.1. And you have a link to those. There's a maintenance branch where you can get those codes. And this particular code is guaranteed to be run out of box on the E3SM supported DOE leadership computing centers. All software tools are open development. There's a link to that. And also I wanted to point everyone to the tools highlight by Rob Jacob as well. on Tuesday at 8:55, and right after that, there's a good talk by Walter Hanna on grids and meshes. So please check it out. External projects can get the early access to the data and information or simulations, concepts, and so on. The way to do that is to request to submit a collaboration request. And this is a simple kind of document that needs to explain what data simulations or what kind of an access is needed, what research is being planned to be done. You need to have a E3SM point of contact, so someone needs to sponsor you, and you need to agree to collaborate with and include the POC in the publication. There's a link here to how to do that. We have more and more ecosystem projects. Those are the projects that are being funded by the DOEBR to work on something towards E3SM. And the project supports those by providing liaison or a participant in this ecosystem projects. And that person is to advise and coordinate early with the ecosystem project to kind of specify what are the current and future planned on, in our project, what are our interests and needs, and also advise about code review policy. That we have a really important code review. We have coding standards, performance checks, and really a lot of testing that's needed for that. There will be a talk by Chris Terai on his experiences with code review and his development of a version v3 of the code. Please check it out. It will be on Tuesday at 2:50. The thing to remember for the ecosystem project is to always plan a lot of time for the integration with the E3SM. It usually takes more time than it's expected. And also to always remember about having got the developer available at times when we need to integrate this code to the coupled system. It's usually when the the code is handed over to the E3SM, but we really need to have some developer from the ecosystem project to respond to any problems that inevitably arise. And the E3SM provides the tools and documentation and so on. So, as I was saying, documentation, webinars, tutorials are available. We have a extensive documentation on the Confluence public site. There's some on internal Confluence site, but this one, anyone can request early access to, as I was saying before. The tools are open source. We have a good documentation on them, and you have links to tools, tutorials, and presentations. External communication, we have our external website, E3SM.org. It's our heartbeat for our project with latest news, research highlights, and project visions and roadmaps. We also put all of those articles on the Floating Points newsletter, which is a quarterly newsletter. Everyone can self-subscribe to it. I recommend it. And we also have a YouTube channel with all seminars, webinars, and tutorials, and recording from this meeting also will be there. And that's all that I had. Thank you.
Okay. We are really
Ahead of time.
I know. So we're early, and we have a general question time for any of us, including Xujing. People were reluctant to ask questions or thought of some between then and now. We'd be happy to entertain those. If anybody has any. If not, we'll move on to the next session.
There's one in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, question from the chat from Xujing. Ruby and Dave, E3SM is for PPR science. Any plan or strategy to incorporate progress in biological system science?
Not beyond what's in the human alert system.
You probably need to be volume to play. They probably can't hear you.
What if Xujing can answer that better?
Okay, so I think you meant that the research activities in the ESSD, the other division, and the ER, right? Okay. I think that, I mean, I don't know if Gary and Sally are still on, but I think there are some recent discussions within the ER about the possibility of those things. And we recently received some kind of, I don't know if you can say that or not, you know, some application in those areas. So we will our mind open, then we'll see what happens. That's all I can say right now. I hope that helps me.
Any other questions?
Good morning. I was just wondering if some people talk about stuff that we don't see like after we've done all this.
So the higher food chain, so that's the whale right there. She's the top predator. So what do they call him? Apex predator.
Yeah, I think the question is probably I mean also from two perspectives. One is from the scientific side, right? These are some like Renata mentioned. Like it's open development project with a lot of data online and code base. So everyone can use it, right? Including outside of DOE. So they kind of the like the chain in the at DOE regularly like we have the newsletter I usually share with our management like Gary and the exciting advancements like the SSD simulations or just any actually recent highlights here we have always forward up and sometimes the DOE of the science they have communication office they will put something really catch their eye to put on all the science backside. So I only encourage everybody to submit any public can have that to me. Yeah, after the announcement I mentioned.
So in Renata's talk, in terms of ecosystem projects, I was surprised. It seemed like it was framed in terms of E3SM will provide liaisons. I thought that the policy was that the ecosystem project needs to fund someone that's also on E3SM too.
Both ways. I think it's both ways, goes both ways. So nowadays, funding usually requires E3SM person to participate in some 12%. The previous ones, we always wanted to have someone to be advisor to the ecosystem project. So it's both ecosystem project and to make sure that someone is very we need and our processes and our
Yeah, I want to elaborate on that a little bit with so many of you may have heard words that like E3SM's budget's being cut and things like that. It has not been cut. I want to assure you right now, E3SM budget has not been cut. What has happened is like your grocery bills, right? Inflation is affecting the project in a flat budget environment. So the project has not been cut. It's still important to DOE and BER, who's trying to manage multiple priorities, just like we're all trying to manage and our organizations are trying to manage these rapid cost increases from everything from labor to paying the electricity for the computers. So I just want to make that point first. So there's no dispute about a belief that the project's not important anymore, because it still is. The second thing is the relationship with the ecosystem projects, as Renata was mentioning, needs to be two ways, right? Our job is not a consulting desk for ecosystem projects. We expect it to be an interactive one with some effort and resources put forward by the ecosystem projects to have people who learn and use the model and become experts in using it. And if they need further development that's specific to their project, that they do that as well. So that's just kind of clearing all of that up. Go ahead, Xujing.
Yeah. First of all, I want to emphasize on this side of the budget. Yes, on my budget for EESSD, I have been increasing, just like not with the inflation. So I want to ensure that first. And also for the ecosystem project, I want to add on what Renata and David said. For the recent ESMD project, Plenary University projects, it's a requirement for the project include the E3SM member as a collaborator, can be funded or unfunded based on the need. But more common than that, in the sense that, for example, some ecosystem project develop a code. If the project finished already, then E3SM on the code very variable and be integrated with E3SM, then you have an issue, right? Who will support the integration? So I have some thoughts in mind, and I look forward to discussing with the EESSD member to see how we go forward to support that member. Yeah.
So I have a question for Ruby. On one of the Ruby slides, you like for path forward, you put the regional refinement modeling as the centerpiece. That leads to both low rise and also actually high rise modeling. So does this mean the regional refinement modeling is the central or the critical tool we are going to use to apply those actionable?
Yeah, I think the regional refined capability is pretty unique within the E3SM project. And initially, our regional refined model only go down to 25 kilometers. But now, of course, we also have the capability to go down to even kilometer scale. Right? I think it is a very important capability for us to use to provide actionable science. But I am not saying that this is the only way. Because as I mentioned, I think even 5-kilometer resolution might become very performant exascale computers. So if that is the case, then we might be able to use it also to do a lot of simulations. And for the convection per million scale, I think there might still be a way for us to go in order to really use it in the type of typical simulation that we are able to address actionable science. At some point in the future, it might be possible, right? So I think it's all up to us how the three types of models use together. And I don't think that we should be only focusing on a
So Ruby, Michael Gray here. I saw a lot about her system human interactions, and you're developing a model that's going to be down to almost 1. And you know, humans pollute the place worse than just climate. And it's any mention. This model is clearly capable of dealing with major. I didn't see any mention at all.
Yeah, so really, I think because we have the capability to go down to kilometer scale, and also including, for example, representation of urban and that type of organization, Our model is really good for addressing that type of question, like the air quality and the interaction with climate and things like that. We haven't developed a specific science question related to this so far, but it doesn't mean that in the future that we wouldn't be incorporating that in some of our simulation campaigns. But I also want to mention that DOE has a really broad portfolio, right? So we developed the modeling capability. It doesn't mean that if the E3SM project has to do all kinds of simulations and address all kinds of science questions. So many other programs, like the NEWS program and other programs, they also been funding investigators who can use E3SM to address many questions. So our goal is to be able to provide the capability. It doesn't mean that we ourselves have to be doing all of those simulations or addressing the broad type of science questions that are important and interesting.
Yeah, I want to build on what Ruby was saying, and I mentioned it earlier. It's DOE mission, not Office of Science mission in our slogan, right? So there are other offices in DOE that deal with air pollution meteorology, some of the applied energy offices. One thing that happened, and it may return, but one thing with the urban focus is DOE got out of the transport and diffusion game for multiple reasons back in the early 2000s. So that's one thing to consider. But Ruby's right. Well, of course she's right. She's always right. But you know, this is a capability and a tool, actually a set of tools. It's a system that is useful for multiple applications. It doesn't mean the project has to do it. We have to have a few science foci to maintain our credibility, to also bring good scientists into the program, which keeps us honest in building our models, that we don't get a little sloppy with it, right? But that doesn't mean we're going to do all the science that's ever going to be done with the model.
The AI machine learning phase 3 of development. So particularly field has been here recently industry. Here Microsoft, Google, they already give foundation model, which is results use the kind of the and theory database. I want to understand how our position.
So we took a pretty practical approach in the proposal towards machine learning. I won't get into artificial intelligence, but machine learning. The project has a strong collaboration with Michael Pritchard and NVIDIA. There is a sub-project which right now is funded actually out of Livermore LDRD, which is in the proposal, but I guess it's with Chris Brotherton, I'm sorry. Michael Pritchard is partially supported by ECP project for his work that he does at Irvine, but we also are developing a CRADA with him so that we can share work, and there's been a lot of work being done with them. So, you know, there's a few areas, and plus we have the auto tuning project at Sandia, which is working on that. So we'll see how those work out. Machine learning has lots of promise, but don't mean this to be a joke, but I mean, I'm data driven, right? So I want to see a good result before I'm going to endorse something. I've been around through, you know, fractals in climate models, wavelets in climate models, Pascal for climate models. I'm an old guy. So, I'm, you know, I must be, you know, I think we need as scientists and engineers to turn our minds towards looking at what is proven and achievable and take some risks, but not throw the whole project into something along those lines and learn as we go along. So that's, I think you'll see it primarily in two areas, in some aspects of analysis with the model and in some development of parameterizations to streamline those, whether it's based on large amounts of observational data or extremely high resolution, high fidelity modeling that'll inform parameterizations along the lines of what Chris Bretherton's doing. So that's my answer. We're not avoiding it, but we're not betting the farm on it either. So.